Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty fascinating. Why, in this super digital age, are people still so captivated by, well, mechanical watches?
That's a great question.
Yeah, and we've got this fresh market analysis report from Cognitive Market Research. It just came out, April 25th, 2025. We're going to dig into it.
Break it down.
Exactly. Give you the lowdown on where things stand, the trends, the growth, the challenges, what's next for all those tiny gears and springs. Basically, your shortcut to sounding like you know what's up.
Right. This report is packed, so our job is to pull out the really key stuff for you. We'll look at market size, who's big, the tech side, and like you said, why they still have this pull.
Okay, let's start with basics then.
Yeah.
For anyone maybe new to this, what actually is a mechanical watch? How's it different from my phone or, a regular battery watch?
Good question. So a mechanical watch runs entirely on mechanics. Think tiny gears, springs, levers, all working together. It's powered by a mainspring you wind up.
No battery.
No battery, no chip. Totally different from a quartz watch, which uses a battery and a vibrating crystal. Mechanicals are admired for, well, the sheer craft involved, the history, the intricate assembly. It's artistry as much as timekeeping.
And it sounds like people really value that art. The market reflects that. What are the numbers looking like?
Oh, yeah, it definitely translates. The report puts the global market at roughly 62.5 billion US dollars for 2024.
Wow, okay. That's significant.
It is, and it's growing. They project it'll hit over 103.4 billion by 2032. That's a compound annual growth rate of, 6.5%. Pretty healthy growth.
So what's fueling that? What's pushing the demand for these, intricate traditional things?
The main engine, according to the analysis, is this really strong, consistent demand for high-end, beautifully made watches. It's part of the whole luxury goods world, fashion, and importantly, collectibles.
Collectibles, right. So it's not just about wearing it.
Not entirely. People see them as style statements, status symbols, sure, but also as potential investments. That collectible angle is big.
Makes sense. What else contributes?
Well, several things tie together. There's a growing interest in both new luxury models and really unique vintage watches. Plus, you've got rising incomes in emerging economies opening the market up.
Okay.
And there's definitely a comeback, a renewed appreciation for traditional watchmaking horology, and just more people, collectors and investors, who really get into the mechanics and value.
You mentioned innovation before. Feels like something so traditional might resist change, but is that true? Are they still inventing stuff?
Oh, absolutely. It's not static at all. There's constant innovation. The report mentions Patek Philippe bringing out a new grand complication model back in April 2023.
A grand complication. Sounds complicated.
It is. This one had an advanced perpetual calendar. That's a mechanism that knows the date, month, leap years, everything automatically for ages. It shows how even the top, most traditional brands are always pushing the mechanical boundaries. That really appeals to the high-end buyer.
Okay, that sets the scene nicely. So let's zoom in on the trends right now. That's $62.5 billion market in 2024. What else is shaping it?
Well, a few things are really influential. You've got the continuing dominance and, the prestige of the big Swiss and Japanese brands. That's fundamental.
And household names.
Exactly. But we're also seeing a real rise in smaller, independent, sort of boutique watchmakers. They often do really unique designs, very specialized stuff. And like we touched on, the vintage and pre-owned market is super active, getting bigger all the time.
Yeah, I can see the appeal of vintage, that history.
Oh, sure. They carry stories, represent milestones. But beyond that, the report emphasizes things like brand exclusivity owning, that name matters, and the constant tech improvements in the movements themselves, plus that core appreciation for just, beautifully handcrafted things. Those are all big drivers right now.
Geographically, where's the hot spot? Where are these watches most popular?
Right now, 2024, North America actually has the biggest slice, about 35%. That's down to high luxury spending, lots of big brands present, and a really developed market for investing in watches.
Okay, and after North America?
Europe's next, holding around 30%. Switzerland, being the heart of watchmaking, obviously helps hugely, plus strong demand across key European countries.
But where's the fastest growth happening?
That's definitely Asia Pacific.
Wow.
They had 25% in 2024, but it's tipped to hit 28% by 2025. That's a growth rate of about 7.2%.
Wow.
Yeah, places like China, Japan, Hong Kong are major drivers. You've got growing wealth, rising interest in luxury generally, and a real boom in watch collecting specifically.
That Asia Pacific growth is something else. Okay, who are the big fish in this pond? The dominant brands?
It is quite concentrated. The report highlights Rolex as, well, dominant. They've got about 30.3% of the market share in 2024.
30%, just Rolex.
Just Rolex. Then you have Patek Philippe with 5.6% and TAG Heuer at 1.7%. These brands really shape the landscape through their history, their R&D, their marketing, everything.
So how do they stay on top? Must be fierce competition even at that level.
It is. Their strategies are pretty complex. Lots of investment in developing their own unique movements, the engines inside the watch, using top-tier materials, super precise engineering. Right. Plus things like strategic collaborations, maybe with car companies or fashion houses, releasing exclusive limited editions that everyone wants, and just constantly pushing the envelope with watchmaking tech. It all builds that prestige and keeps collectors interested.
So within that high-end market, how does it break down? Mechanical versus quartz.
Well, interestingly, even with quartz being convenient and super accurate, mechanicals still rule the high-end segment. For 2024, it was about 55% mechanical, 40% quartz, and maybe 5% for hybrids.
And that's expected to continue.
Yeah, the forecast suggests mechanicals might even nudge up to 57% by 2025. It really shows how much people value that traditional mechanism at the luxury level.
Okay, so tradition is huge. But let's talk more about the tech. What's happening inside these mechanical wonders? What are the trends in materials and the actual mechanics?
There's constant refinement. We're seeing more complex movements like tourbillons, those spinning cages that help with accuracy, and those perpetual calendars we mentioned. Plus, a lot of work with cutting-edge materials.
Like what?
Things like silicon components, especially in the escapement, that's the bit that regulates timekeeping. Silicon reduces friction, resists magnetism, needs less oil. It's a big deal for accuracy and reliability.
Huh, interesting.
Also, advancements in tourbillon designs themselves, getting longer power reserves so the watch runs longer between winds, and using advanced metals, new alloys that are stronger, lighter, or resist magnetism better.
It's amazing the tiny improvements they're still chasing after all this time.
It really is. And alongside all that tech stuff, there's this growing focus on sustainability. Ethical sourcing of materials, more eco-friendly production methods, that's becoming much more important.
Right, that reflects bigger trends, I guess. Any specific examples of recent tech leaps?
Yeah, the report mentions a couple from 2023. Rolex brought out a new generation movement with an improved chronology escapement, better efficiency, longer power reserve. And Patek Philippe, again, had that limited edition perpetual calendar chronograph, just showcasing their continuous push in high-end complications.
And linking that back to the regional growth, how do these tech and sustainability trends play out, say, in Asia-Pacific versus Europe?
Good point. Asia-Pacific, holding that 28% share in 2024, projected to hit 30% next year. It's not just the fastest growing, but it's fueled by younger consumers who are actually quite knowledgeable. They appreciate the tech sophistication and the heritage.
Okay.
Europe, meanwhile, still the biggest market share at 40%, benefits from having that whole ecosystem, the manufacturers, the suppliers who are often leading these tech and sustainability advances. They're catering to a very discerning, often wealthy customer base that values both tradition and innovation.
So it really seems like this whole market expansion is tied up with this deep appeal of luxury and heritage. Why are those elements so powerful here?
Yeah, definitely. There's just this resurgence in appreciating traditional craftsmanship, the skill, the hand finishing, the complexity. People value the history of these brands, the idea that these things might hold or gain value. It's tangible history.
A connection to the past, maybe.
Exactly. For affluent buyers, it's often a status symbol, yes, but also seen as a serious investment. And what's interesting is that younger people are getting into it too. Brands are doing modern takes on classic designs, which taps into this desire for, I don't know, authenticity, lasting quality in a world that feels very fast and disposable.
Something real, something with a story.
Precisely. And the report also points to how things like limited editions and collaborations, maybe with fashion brands or artists, really ramp up interest in that feeling of exclusivity that fuels demand too.
We talked about tech advances, but let's circle back to that and also the sustainability piece. Can we go a bit deeper there?
Sure. So the tech focus is really on improving precision, getting longer power reserves, just making them more practical day to day and using new materials. Brands pour money into R&D to make the movements more efficient, reduce friction between all those tiny parts, improve accuracy, and just make the watches tougher, more reliable.
Like the silicon parts you mentioned.
Right. That's a perfect example. Using silicone in escapements or hairsprings makes a real difference in performance and resistance to things like magnetic fields, which are everywhere now.
And sustainability is becoming more central, you said, not just greenwashing.
It seems like it's moving beyond that, yes. It's
Okay.
becoming more baked into how things are done. Brands are looking at eco-friendlier production, using recycled materials, think packaging, maybe even metals, and really paying attention to where their gold, diamonds, etc. come from. Ethical sourcing is key,
And consumers care more.
especially younger consumers, particularly in those growing emerging markets. They often weigh sustainability alongside the luxury aspect. Plus, you've got more regulatory pressure and just general consumer demand for transparency about how luxury goods are made. We're seeing actual examples like watches using bio-based plastics or straps or more use of recycled gold.
Okay, so lots of positive momentum, lots of innovation,
Hmm.
but it can't all be smooth sailing. What are the main challenges or, potential roadblocks for this market?
No, definitely not smooth sailing. There are hurdles. One big one is just how sensitive luxury markets are to the economy. When things slow down, people cut back on discretionary spending, and high-end watches are definitely discretionary.
Right, makes sense. What else?
Well, there's the ongoing competition from smartwatches. They offer totally different things: connectivity, apps, health tracking, and appeal strongly to younger, tech-savvy buyers. It's a different proposition, but they're competing for that same risk space.
Yeah, that's a constant battle, I guess.
It is. Mechanical watches rely on their craftsmanship, heritage, that emotional connection as their counterargument.
And I bet counterfeits are still a huge issue.
Oh, massive. Fake watches are everywhere, especially online. They really damage the brand's reputations, undermine trust, and obviously cost them sales. It's a constant fight.
So how do brands fight back against all that?
It takes a combination of things: strengthening their brand story, really emphasizing the craft and value, investing in anti-counterfeiting tech, whether it's on the watch or in the packaging or tracking, and reinforcing exclusivity through things like limited editions, controlling distribution, really making ownership feel special.
Okay, so looking forward then, what kind of new stuff can we expect to see coming out soon? Any cool examples?
The report mentions a couple from summer 2024. In July, Rolex brought out a new version of their GMT Master 2. Oyster Perpetual GMT Master 2, technically.
Ah, the Pixie Batman watch crowd goes wild.
Hey, maybe. This one had a subtle update, a black and gray ceramic bezel. Very Rolex, refining the details, focusing on technical excellence. They also updated the Perpetual 1908 and date lines, just continuous evolution.
Steady refinement from the crown. What else?
And then in June 2024, Swatch dropped 3 new models in their bio-ceramic moon swatch line. The super popular Omega collaboration.
Oh yeah, those are huge. Still are.
Seems like it. These were non-limited, part of a Mission on Earth series called Lava, Polar Lights, Desert. Really creative colors, inspired by nature. What's neat there is Swatch using those sustainable-ish bioceramic materials, keeping it accessible price-wise, and using playful design to pull new people into watches.
So kind of two different approaches there. Rolex doing the high-end refinement,
Yeah.
Swatch doing accessible, trendy, sustainable-ish stuff.
Exactly. You're seeing innovation across the board. The high-end brands keep refining their mastery, blending heritage with tech, and others are finding new ways, new materials, new price points to broaden the appeal. The expectation is just continuous change, blending old and new to keep people interested globally.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. We've covered a ton. If you had to boil it down, what are the key things our listeners should take away about the mechanical watch market today?
Okay, 3 main things, I think. One, this market's set for pretty significant growth, driven by that mix of luxury appeal, tradition, new tech, and increasingly sustainability.
Right.
2, while big names like Rolex dominate, there's a really vibrant scene with independent makers doing cool, innovative stuff. And 3, it's not without challenges. Economic bumps, smartwatches, and fakes are real issues they constantly have to manage.
It really is this amazing blend of old world craft and modern tech all ticking away right there.
It is. And maybe a final thought for you to ponder. In our world of fleeting digital everything, why do these little mechanical machines still hold such fascination? What is it about gears and springs that connects with us? And how will technology and our changing values keep shaping not just our watches, but maybe even how we think about time itself? Something to mull over.